Welcome, Ascenders, to Awaken, where we dive into some expansive conversations to assist you in your ascension process. My name is Bryan Henry. I'm the founder of Together We Ascend and the Ascend Academy, a community of awakened leaders who have come together to ascend together. On Awaken, I have on some of the most interesting teachers in the space of personal and spiritual growth who share with us their experience and their wisdom to help you ascend your consciousness and realize your highest purpose and potential. But this is just the beginning, because if you're looking to take things to the next level by coming together with other like-minded and like-hearted individuals in the intention of supporting one another and growing together, well, I invite you to come check us out at the Ascend Academy. As an activated member of the Academy, you'll get access to live sessions in which you'll get to interact with and learn live from many of the teachers that we have on the show. You'll also get access to our growing masterclass library full of content to support you in your process. To give you the chance to try all of this out, we're now offering a free 30-day trial so that you can experience what it's like being a part of the community before deciding if this is in alignment for you. And if you aren't, that's alright too. Know that you can still join us on the Academy's online platform for free to connect with other ascenders on the journey. So if you're hearing the call to unite and ascend together, you can head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com to activate your free membership trial. And now let's jump into another conversation on Awaken. This one is with 7-time CEO founder, including founder of Oasis Adaptogens, Jeremy Hoffmann. In it, Jeremy and I get into a profound conversation in which he shares with us his story of coming out of some rock bottom states of stress and addiction to transforming his life from the inside out into states of harmony and connection. Jeremy, who's now a successful entrepreneur and an absolute leader in the space of conscious entrepreneurship, shares with us some advice for taking radical responsibility in our lives. He also shares with us a mantra that changed everything for him in this way. And lastly, if you are either an entrepreneur yourself or have at all been intrigued by the idea of becoming one, Jeremy shares with us some advice that I'm sure is going to help many of you on this path and in embodying your unique expression. Ascenders, I'm excited for you to hear this one. This is Awaken with Jeremy Hoffmann. Our guest today built his first multi-million-dollar company in under 12 months without any experience or university education. He's the CEO and founder of multiple businesses that are creating products, programs, and solutions for helping cultivate states of connection through the physical, emotional, mental, and virtual planes of reality. He's the founder and CEO of Oasis Adaptogens, a holistic wellness company that is dedicated to helping the world remember harmony through natural solutions, including their best-selling and award-winning product, Not Coffee. He's the CEO and founder of Connected Community, a Vancouver-based wellness event company that brings together people to connect and be their most authentic self. And he's also the CEO and co-founder of Aligned Earth, a custom solutions ecosystem for world-changing projects, products, and businesses. He's also a self-mastery coach, a facilitator for breathwork, a retreat leader for transformational experiences, and a 7-time CEO founder of companies focused on impact. He sees a future where science, technology, and spirituality meet, one in which our world is healed from states of disconnection, loneliness, stress, and fatigue, and he's building the movements that are helping humanity shift out of these states back into connection and harmony. Jeremy Hoffmann, welcome, my man. I'm looking forward to not just having you on the show and for this epic conversation that I know we're going to have, but just also get to know you, man. It's been on my radar to connect with you a little bit for the last few months, and I'm looking forward to doing all of those things at once.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the beautiful intro, and likewise to just be here. We've shared some voice notes and a couple moments here and there, but being able to fully drop in with you has been on the list.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the intro covered my bases, but I'd still love to hear it from you, and in case there's any gaps to fill. When I ask this question, I also let my guests know, interpret it however you'd like. Who are you and why are you here?
It's so funny that the who am I question, part of the retreat and facilitation that uh, I have led for years. It always starts very quickly with dyads and dyad work. And if you're not familiar with dyads work, for anyone listening, it's the smallest social circle. It's you making eye contact with another individual. You make eye contact with one another. Person number one, answers a question that we set, like, who am I, or how was your week? And person number two answers. Now, person number one only receives. They don't smile. They don't nod. They don't acknowledge in any way, shape, or form. They are just there to make eye contact and to listen and to receive the individual. And my reason for sharing this is once we get people warmed up and the ice is broken and people are connecting to their hearts, I always ask the question, who are you? And it's so beautiful to witness 10, 20, 30 people answering the question at the same time, who are they? And some start off and say, I'm Jeremy, I'm 28 years old, I'm blah, blah, blah. And other people pause and they're like, who am I? And some will say, I am energy. Some will say, I am love. Some will say, I am light. Some will just say, I am. And so, to not be overly cliche, other than the statement that I am, because that is all that I can be, is I am. And based on the I am all things that I have the potential to be, which I do fully believe. I am also a young man with a passion to create win-win solutions that truly inspire humanity to remember harmony. And the remember part is very important because we're not trying to. We don't need to keep achieving harmony. We just need to slow down and remember harmony innately within inside of us.
What leads you in feeling so confident that I am?
What leads me in feeling so confident that I am? When I close my eyes and I breathe, whether I'm in nature, whether I'm in my home, there's an interconnectedness to all things that I experience, that I witness, that I feel. And from this state, there is no separation. There is no, me and the water. There's no me and the room. I can feel my energy expand into all time and space all around me. And it leads me to the fact to me that there is no separation. We are not separate from one another. Sure, we have unique lenses. Bryan has his unique lens. Jeremy has his unique lens. But ultimately, I believe that there is no separation. There is no division. We are interconnected in ways that we are just only beginning. And that I am intrinsically interconnected to all that is. And I feel that as I drop into a state of connection, and that state of connection is my guiding light, my beacon of wisdom, my beacon of truth that's guided me to where I am today. And it just feels fully resonant in the I amness that I can be all things. And the more physical, reflection or evidence of that to me is, an example is, what I'm drinking right here. It's a beverage called Not Coffee. Now, we've won a lot of awards. It's for one of my companies. I'm not a herbalist. I'm not a food scientist. I'm not a formulator. I don't have a background in any of that, but I was guided through many, different tuning in and fine tuning process to create a formula that's helping a ton of people around the world. Now, I'm not just an entrepreneur. I'm not just a CEO. I'm not just a facilitator. I'm apparently also an alchemist that can create these herbal and functional mushroom beverages. And so I am also, a brother. I am also a son. I am also someone who likes to play. And so the I am is, if we just, with distinction can remove these identifying factors that we give ourselves in order to create some level of certainty or identity. And we can move back to the I am. And in the I am, we know that we can be all things. It doesn't have to all be at the same time if that's too overwhelming, but I am intrinsically all things that I am called to be.
What I'm getting from that is the attachments that we have, or our identifications that we have to pieces of aspects of our self-identity, can limit us from more coming through. And when we let go of those pieces of identification, we allow for ourselves to be open to expressing more. So now, do you think would you say then it is a practice of just letting go of all these identifications? Yeah.
And my more logical mind says, if we just let go, we're in this like world of abyss and mystery and unknown all the time. And there's a part of me that likes to have a grounded perspective, and something that I've been foraging in my mind is this: how do you let go of all things and just exist while operating inside of structures of, modern society where you are Bryan and you have a beard and you have, right? Okay. So these are things like, what if I don't care about my identity? Why do I have a beard? It's like, well, I don't actually think about having a beard. I honestly just don't shave or forget to shave for a couple of days and realize that it's getting kind of straggly, and then just trim it up because I would prefer to look a little bit more clean cut when I come on for an interview. So I feel like there's this fine line of like, do I want to still be identified as someone who looks professional, that comes across? I do, but it's a choice. It's a conscious choice of how I intend to show up based on the fact that we have these incredible alchemic opportunities to be whatever it is that we want. So it's this process of like knowing that we are these alchemists, that we can be, I am Jeremy with a backwards hat, with a trimmed but full beard, wearing this orange hoodie. That's awesome. Today I am that. And also I just am.
It's the holding of the simultaneously holding of the two perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then also in allowing that space of openness and just being in that, just openness. I think there's more room to consciously choose what you want to be.
100%. You're not stuck on who you think you should be. You're not stuck on that I always need to look like this. Like sometimes I could wear the hat forward. Sometimes my hair would just be how it is. Sometimes I would do my hair. Sometimes I'll shave my beard. Whatever it is, it's the conscious choice to be. And this is just speaking to, physical attributes. So for people to, if they're watching this, can actually see, but it's letting go of that attachment to how, it's like, sometimes people ask me how old I am. And it's like, I don't have that answer just like on auto lock. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm, X. And so tonight, as an example, I have to think about it. I'm not like so ready to identify as this age at this, you know what I mean? So I think it's just not being attached to those identities, but also not getting so, overwhelmed or lost in this trying to remove all identity to all things. And I think that, there can be some caution tape around that as well, depending on how you're able to hold both so that you can show up in society, if that's what you choose to do, and play this beautiful game that is life, that is sacred and divine.
Do you feel like you've ever gone too much off in that direction?
I think that there was a time in my life where if you would have asked me that question, I would have just said, I am. And then that's all I would have said. Upon reflection, that just doesn't feel as relevant or as expressive of who I am as Jeremy, uniquely expressed, as I would prefer. Hence why we've spent the last couple of minutes going deeper into this, right? So I think there's a time where I thought even there was like this aspect of ego that was like, if you just are, then you're everything, and then people can figure it out. And so I was learning how to hold this infinite potential of I am, and then ground that potential into being able to actually express and have more points where the representative of Jeremy, which is me, which I have a unique expression on the world, is still expressed through the I amness.
It's also the focusing of that potential.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the light through the magnifying glass, like the magnifying glass that has the DNA and the cells and the makeup that is uniquely Jeremy. I do have a unique voice. And this is something, to touch on is, even though we're interconnected and all from one consciousness, I do believe as that light comes down and becomes refined through our unique expression, there is still a unique Jeremy essence. And also, as we scale up that light spectrum, we are interconnected and infinitely potential to all things.
Tell me about this unique expression of Jeremy.
Oh, man. Yeah, this unique expression of Jeremy loves to mountain bike. He loves to ski. He loves to be in nature. He loves cold water before it was cool. In the water, usually, like in the rivers, in the ocean, in the lakes. He likes to dance. He loves electronic music, but also loves all kinds of other music. But he'll often be before like a big presentation or a big meeting, he'll have his AirPods in and like dancing around to some kind of like crazy bass music. I use that as like my expression of weirdness. Like, I'm fully sober. I've been fully sober, like not even a microdose, not even, drops of THC or anything for over 3 years, but I'll still go to like festivals just because I purely love to dance and get weird. And so, Jeremy, unique expression, loves to dance, loves to move, loves to spend time with one another, loves to connect, loves to communicate. What else does he love? He just loves to create stuff. To be honest, he's an alchemist and an inventor in that way.
What do you feel motivates what you create?
There was a period of my life between 17 and 23. And for reference, I'm 28 now. So 5 years ago, and then, the 5 or 6 years before there, where I went through, and when I say I went through, I'm very grateful for the challenges and the experiences, and I've had it a lot better than a lot of people in the world. So I say it with humility, and those periods of time were very real for me. So the amount of like suffering and what I would call like hell on earth was so in my face. And I didn't know I didn't know I was in it, and I didn't know that I could get out of it. I didn't have that awareness. When you're in that hellhole, you can say, you're not aware that there's heaven or there's light just over here. And that over here is just these switches in how you're seeing the world and how you're living your life. And as I came out of that fire, as I came out of that state, I took a look around my friend groups, the world that I was interacting with, whether this was online or even in person at this time, pre-COVID, when there was people were doing stuff, and now we're back, and some of us maybe didn't stop, but but my point being, I was so inspired to, instead of just working towards creating more identity and creating more status and creating more, richness. And I use richness instead of wealth for myself because it was purely monetary. Wealth to me is holistic in nature, but richness. And I realized that just was not the way to be living in my life. And I realized that there was so many, quote unquote, solutions waiting to be created by people in the world that I had not yet seen, that I was inspired to like sell my house, liquidate any assets I had, and dive headfirst in figuring out how to create solutions to the same problems that I faced, like pre, during, and post, that I truly believe could help other people around the world.
Now, were these the types of solutions that helped you?
The things that I'm currently creating?
Yeah.
100%. There's not many that I'm checking. I wouldn't say, yeah, there's 90% yes, 10% maybe they somehow correlate, but they're all intrinsically connected still.
Yeah. I want to dive deeper into the story. You described the hell that you're living in. What, if you're open to sharing, what did that look like?
Yeah, I'm always mindful of, sharing, but so quick background, I was raised in a very, very strict Christian home. A lot of, punishments, and was also not allowed to go to school. Wasn't allowed to listen to traditional music or TV or movies or anything like this. And so, you could say very sheltered. It was very like contained, very like specific. Most of the people that I hung out with weren't outside of a Christian, smaller town Christian box. I'm not talking maybe Christianity as like a whole concept, like a smaller town, Christian family. And I'm very super grateful upon reflection for the way that I was brought up, but it didn't make sense to me while I was going through this process, of course, as a child and a young human. And so as soon as I was able to, through my teens, I started to rebel super hardcore. And by the time I was able to drive, well, I'll take it one step back. At this level, I was playing very high level soccer. Wasn't allowed to play other sports, had different contracts signed. That was supposed to be, quote unquote, at this period of my life, that was my career. I was going to eventually go to Europe, and I was playing, here. And that's what I really wanted to do. Again, hindsight, was I giving it my all? No, I wasn't taking it as serious as I thought I was taking it. But again, the clarity in hindsight as we learn and move forward is truly amazing in our abilities as humans. And I ended up getting injured right before some huge tryouts and some, really epic opportunities, and getting super, I guess what most people would call sad, depressed, really not feeling well. When you have everything when you're 16, 17, and you're going full tilt for something, and then all of a sudden, something comes and takes that out of you, and you don't have the skills or the tools and the mindset, or sometimes even, the support systems immediately around you to help you, you're just very upset. You're very angry. And I paired that anger from my childhood, a lot of blame on my family, and then also this injury. And I fueled that in the gym. And so, the injury was like a leg, ankle injury. And so I was able to fuel my anger, my rage, my frustration, my depression into the gym. And so I was already quite fit, but started to get really jacked. And through that series, I ended up getting onto steroids. And that was like the first tipping point into this more gray market world. And through that path, and I won't go into as many details unless you probe me, that led to many years of me working, operating in the gray markets, and I'll leave it there, and we can dive deeper in if we so choose. The gray markets for a decent amount of my age between 17 and 21, 22. It also led me into various different drug addictions, from the steroids to cocaine to MDMA, even cannabis. I was highly addicted to all forms of stimulants like caffeines, energy drinks, anywhere from a full thermos of coffee and 1 or 2 energy drinks every day, plus pre-workouts before the gyms. And the amount of angst, stress, tension, I developed something called sleep apnea, but a very unique type of sleep apnea that my body was so exhausted, but my brain was so awake that when I would fall asleep, like my body would shut down. I'd feel like I was getting choked or drowned, and I would gasp about 30 to 40 times every single night. So I was not sleeping. I would wake up. I could not function without drugs, high amounts of caffeine. Like I would do cocaine at 7:30 in the mornings before, going to my construction job at the time, my construction business, just to like stay awake and focus. And it felt like what I do when I drink water nowadays, and in and out of hospitals, walking pneumonia for over 2 years, body was wrecked, immune system was gone, and anxious, stressed, body was short circuiting. I didn't know that there was a life of like calmness, of peace, of happiness, of connection to myself and to others. I had no fucking clue that existed. I truly believed that everyone else thought the way that I did. I thought, everyone else was so stressed. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I wasn't able to comprehend the life that I live now, the person who I am now, or the people that I get to meet now. And so as this clarity started to show itself through the modalities and the practices and the perspectives and the teachings and the medicines and the holistic approaches and all of these different pieces, I was like, man, if I don't commit the rest of my life to working on these solutions at different points, then like, what am I doing here on this earth? And yeah, so there's maybe some points there you might want to know more about, but that was that period that created this motivation that people ask me, like, how do you hold so many things? Like, what motivates you? I'm like, I have everything that I want to be like happy and to thrive and be abundant. Why was I working late last night? Why was I up super early to be on this podcast? Because I just want to continue to create and find that threshold of play that allows me to still live my life to its fullest potential, like with what I can create, but then also what I allow myself to experience in this lifetime.
I was going to save this one for later, but there was a quote from you from the summit that I wanted to pull out, and it goes something like, we all have the opportunity in this life to create a life that lights us the fuck up. And it sounds like you've been on an incredible journey of doing so for yourself, my man. As for the picture you painted us, I don't feel called to go deeper into the story. I think you've done a pretty good job of showing us what, can I call it, rock bottom looked like for you?
For me personally, yes, that was. Yeah.
I now want to hear more about the turning point. How did the solutions, the tools start to present themselves? And just take us through the journey of coming out of it. Yeah.
And I just want to highlight your beautiful ability to ask incredibly profound and succinct questions. And the fact that you did your homework enough to pull a quote from the summit. I love that. And I appreciate you. So thank you. And an example of this, which will probably obviously be shared, and maybe one day when I'm like 50, someone's going to be playing back this clip or something funny, but like, I really love to like push that light us the fuck up or ignites us far. So like there's a moment last summer when I was in New York for NFT NYC. And if anyone knows about these types of events, there's like the main event, but then there's all these like breakout events, right? So like at these big conferences, there's the conference, but a lot of the parties, a lot of the networking is happening at these, breakout or hacker houses. It's similar for a lot of conferences or festivals or things like this. There's like the after parties or the pre-parties or whatever it may be. And so I was still going about my everyday work life, but I went to this house and we were doing some sampling, some talking. This girl saw my tattoos. She's like, "Hey, I really love your tattoos. Like, I'm a tattoo artist. Do you want like a small tattoo?" Like, I had brought my tattoo gun, and I'm like, okay, I'm in some random house in Brooklyn, and there's this incredible artist, with like dreadlocks and everything. And she's just like, yeah, like I'd love to like give you a tattoo. I see that you love mushrooms. Like, let's give you a mushroom tattoo. I'm like, fuck yeah. So I'm on a Zoom call and I'm laying down on a couch and my ankle is like hanging off the back of the couch and I'm getting tattooed, like this mushroom, which I have on my ankle, tattooed while I'm on my Zoom call. And no one has any idea. They can just like see my head, right? And I'm like not making any sound. There's people in the room like, is that guy on a Zoom call right now? And I'm like, yeah, it's all good. And so here I am getting a mushroom tattoo and some may see this is completely irresponsible, and like that's okay. I'm not here to impress anybody. So for me, it's an example of just like lighting up what makes me uniquely me and ignites me. And in a world where there is so much, work and things that I get to do, how I like to add some flavor to it. So I just wanted to share that story as a
so
pure example of my unique expression, because you'll often find me, just doing funny stuff like that. So the turning point. So yeah. When I was, we'll go into it. So at this period of my life, gray market, steroids, a lot different person than you see in front of you or you hear through your ears right here in this moment. But I was still like a good human, like I still had like this good heart, even though there was like many aspects of me that were really in deep development. they were getting cooked in the fire, you could say, and pressurized coal, whatever you want to say. But I ended up having this experience with this girl when I was on mushrooms at a music festival. And at this point, I didn't believe in God. I was not a spiritual human in any way, shape, or form. There was no... When I died. I didn't think about energy. I didn't think everything was interconnected. Like none of the stuff that I've said up until this point. I am some like tattooed meathead, gray market dude that doesn't believe in any of this stuff. Okay. So just paint this picture. Drove a big truck, like all of the personas and identities, and I ended up eating some mushrooms with this girl. I was at a festival in Washington State. And I was like, I've never really like loved someone deeply. And I'm like hugging her as she's sitting in front of me. And I just say to her, I'm like, you feel like you're my person. And at this moment, again, we are high on mushrooms. So I'm not saying this happened fully sober. I felt like our souls completely merged into one. There was an interconnectedness between us and the entire world that I've never experienced still to this day. Again, disclaimer, I didn't believe this to be true at the time, and it's still crazy to me, but we ended up communicating for a series of hours, like number of hours. I could know her thoughts. She could know my thoughts. I saw her whole lifetime. She saw my whole lifetime. I could see through her third eye when I was not with her, which is called fourth eye vision. So like, I remember there's a moment where I'm like in the urinal and I'm like peeing, and I'm like closing my eyes, in an altered state. And I could like witness the energy of the stage, the color and the lights of the stage that she was looking at like 20, 30 feet outside of the urinal. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Right. But it wasn't just I wasn't just hallucinating. It was very clearly the energy that she was receiving into her third eye. And upon my connection with different cultures, they do this. This is how they show each other things around the world. They call it fourth eye vision. And so, we talked about the third eye, but we're talking about fourth eye, which is projecting what your third eye sees to someone else at a different place, right? These ancient technologies that I believe we're all going to have more and more access to as we open ourselves up and are open to this. And so without going into all the nitty gritty details, this girl and her mom, her mom had been a psychedelic facilitator and a shaman for a very long period of time. And her daughter, who I was having this experience with, was already super versed in all things holistic on the plant medicine side, on the mushroom side, the functional mushrooms, the ashwagandhas, the herbs, the tinctures, the Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine. All of that was already like ingrained into her. And that was, this girl and I ended up getting engaged. We ended up getting married. And that was my first like beacon of light. She got me onto Aubrey Marcus. If you're familiar with Aubrey Marcus and On It, she's like, I got to find someone who's cool that's into spiritual shit, because Jeremy won't listen to anyone else. It's got to be someone who's like actually fucking cool. And so she's like, hey, you should check out this Aubrey Marcus guy. You know, this is before his book or before any of this stuff. And she got me on there, really, truly started to support my health from the inside out. And I'll fast forward and then I'll come back. But what that community was missing was the movement, was the breath, was the cold, was the nature. They're a very plant-based community, plant-based, not vegan, plant medicine-based. Not that there's anything wrong with being vegan, but plant medicine-based and holistic. But they were, from my perspective, with what I needed, they were missing a huge other opportunity over here that was just reliant on the nature and elements and things like this, like movement and breath and cold and heat, and some of these other, incredible teachers. And so I had a lot of the like nervous system re-regulating from the adaptogen and the functional mushroom side. So, instead of drinking my coffee every morning and my energy drinks every day, I started to drink chaga mushrooms, which is in this beautiful cup right here. And I started to drink things like ashwagandha and cordyceps and rhodiola. These are all herbs and mushrooms that are good for natural energy, that don't act like caffeine. They don't act like an energy drink, but over a period of time, they do significantly improve your body's natural operating systems. They take sometimes weeks, they take sometimes months, but they do work. I'm like alive, very likely because they work. And I started to replace a lot of those habits and a lot of those, cravings and desires with a more holistic way. And yeah, so that was my entry on that side of that. That was a period of about a year where I went into the plant medicine, both with psychedelic use. I'd already been doing psychedelics, but not in a ceremonial setting. So deep ceremonial settings, a lot of different beautiful and powerful experiences there. And then into the holistic side with the herbs and the mushrooms and the tinctures and the brews and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then it was after about a year where I was still really struggling. My body was doing a lot better, but the mind was still an absolute, I don't know, man, just a beast of its own. Learning how to ground my potential and my energy and not having the right outlets or methods of channeling or moving that energy. The body was doing much better. And so she basically sent me off to Asia, because she's like, you need a break. You need to go to Asia. Like, here's the plane ticket to Bali, my financing, but, we're booking you a flight to Bali. And when I went over to Asia, Thailand, and then ultimately down through South America as well, is where I learned how to breathe and how to move and like how to fast and how to connect and all of these other pieces. And I was like, whoa, this is the more holistic picture that really, the mind was the hardest thing for me. But before the mind would listen, my physical nervous system had to be re-regulated by not having so many stimulants and caffeines and pollutions and toxins in my body. So I needed to work, for me, some people say the mind's first, but the body holds a lot of the programming for me. Yes, the mind can override that, but that takes a certain level of quote unquote, like brain power or intention or focus, discipline, all these things. So for my journey, it wasn't through the mind and into the body. It was more from the body then into the mind, because my body was in a state that allowed me to accept new programming, before just trying to override the body, because I was so depleted. I couldn't override the body. The body was like, fuck you, dude. Like, we need support. And yeah, so then I learned a lot of those tools, and that was a very pivotal and revolutionary period of my life.
Yeah. To the point of mind being first, and for you being the case of addressing the body's needs. I like to think of it as not one preceding the other, but just an interconnectedness where they feed in and support one another. And it sounds like for you, the low hanging fruit was addressing the body first. And that's why your journey took the course that it did.
Yep. Yeah. Beautifully put.
Yeah. So I feel like even just hearing the story, I felt in you the answer to this next question, but I'd just love to hear it from your own words. What did the shift feel like?
There was a couple different really distinguishing moments, but it felt like if you were holding your breath underwater, not maybe intentionally, like you were being forced underwater, not like, hey, I'm doing some Wim Hof and I'm going in the cold or whatever. Like, I'm going to hold it as long as I can. And then when I come out, it's going to, no, I mean like being drowned underwater. As long as you can hold your breath, and then you come and it's like dark and like murky and there's like sharks and shit down there. And then all of a sudden you come out of the water and you're like, oh, and you're just like gasping and you're like, oh, and you just like look around and there's like palm trees and like a beach and like other humans. And you're just like, whoa, just like in a state of awe, and wonder and nourishment and aliveness and interconnectedness and presence. So it felt like a breath of fresh air. It felt like a full rebirthing experience to me, right? People talk about the rebirthing. It's like, I don't know how else to fucking say it, but I felt like I was dead and I feel like I'm very alive now. And again, this is without any specific religious connotation, right? So this is just, again, my unique experience. And so just very like night and day, and like water to land, hell to heaven. Those are the best ways that I could perceive it. But there was, one distinguishing factor or memory. I was actually with Lee Davey, funny enough. I know you know Lee, and he was an incredible, inspirer and mentor when I first met him, who really helped me with breath before. And then we went on to like do some breath, a lot of breath facilitation together and even courses together. But he was the first real strong pillar that was like, you got to get your fucking breath down, dude. And we were in Costa Rica, and we were in Costa Rica, and we're walking along the beach after surfing. And it was just, this has been said before. I hadn't heard it before this period of time, but it was like, every single thing is happening for me, not to me. Every single thing that's happening in my life is happening for me, not to me. And for me, that made a shift in my mind that life is simple, but that doesn't make it easy. So life is a series of simple decisions that are simple does not mean easy. So simple can still take discipline, but the decision to breathe every morning before you start your day, your decision to, end a relationship, your decision to transition careers that aren't fulfilling to you. It's a simple decision. Again, doesn't make it fucking easy. I get it. Right. But it is a simple decision to leave. And when we start to realize that everything in life is happening for us, it hit me because I look back on my life and a lot of this negative stress, and I say negative stress is stress that is negatively impacting the body, because there is stress that is really good for us to build our threshold to it. But it was coming from this resistance to, like, I wasn't accepting. I was in resistance. I was choosing suffering because I wasn't accepting what was happening. I was in a constant state of, like a fish swimming upstream, like resistance to what actually was. I was making it really challenging instead of realizing that it could be simple. And instead of realizing that this situation was happening for me so that I can learn from it. Like any situation, an end of a relationship, a client, a health issue, whatever it is, that this is an opportunity of reflection, of growth that I now had to work through to understand in a deeper way. Once I understood that, I started to look at life as a beautiful, divine, sacred game that I get to play, that I have chosen to play in this time and space, that when things are coming up, I say, damn, that's a hard fucking challenge. How am I going to do this? What do I need right now? And maybe I need some space. Maybe I need to dive head into it. But it gave me a way of looking at life in a way that's not overly positive or not necessarily negative. It's not like, oh yeah, hey, another horrible, challenging challenge. It's still like, fuck, okay, how am I going to do this? All right, let's do this. But it just gave me a lens to look at life in a way that felt so much more grounded and empowering, and truly, instead of victim consciousness, brought me into a state of victor consciousness. I like to say from victim to victor, right? Because that's a lens in how we see the world. And the principle of that is life is happening for me, not to me.
Amazing, man. I'm really glad that you've shared with us that quote, the mantra. And as you were sharing, I was allowing myself to just fully try it on, and well, it feels good. It feels empowering, liberating.
Your radical self-responsibility is like the precursor for that too, right? It's like, let's say like even you with the podcast, right? Let's say someone doesn't show up, right, to the podcast, and you can say, okay, like you could be frustrated. Not that I'm saying you would be frustrated, so I don't want to project this over you. Let's just hypothetically speaking, Bob has the podcast, and the guy doesn't. For me, I'd be like, okay, like I was really excited to do this. I'm not going to have time for another while. This guy was going to, offer a lot of value, etc. Now, why is this happening? It could be happening because you needed more rest today. It could be happening because there was like, a creative project that you're working on. And instead of, doing the podcast, you really needed to spend this time with yourself to fuel that creative idea. It could also be that there was a break in your system. So, there could be, if radical responsibility goes, okay, what can I do without responsibility is negate of blame or shame primarily, or fault, So it's like, okay, this person didn't show up. How do I take radical responsibility? What's my customer user journey, right? So like, how could I make sure that this doesn't happen? Should I set another reminder? Do I offer people to have a text reminder? All these different things. It's like, okay, no, I've done all those things. Okay, cool. So this is happening for me. I've checked my systems. My systems are tight. I'm just going to accept this process and allow it to be. And also probably send a message to this person and say, hey, I was super stoked to have you. I also really, respect my time. So next time I'd still love to have you in the show, but if you're not going to be able to make it, like, please let me know, with respect to both of our times and the sacredness of time. And so that's just, maybe not the best example, but how we can take any situation and begin to reframe how we see what's happening to us in our lives.
I know that's another piece that you talk quite a bit about, reframing.
I like the reframes. The reframes for me are that, simple perspective shift of the stories, going back to identity, but the stories that we tell ourselves and our ability to just rewrite that story just with our words and then with our thoughts, or with our thoughts and our words, interconnected, of course. But how do we reframe these moments? And it's really not that challenging to do. I think one of the first TikToks or reels, it was a reel that I posted in the reframe section. It did decent, and it was like, I hate my job. That was like the statement. And I was like, my reframe to that was, what do I still have to learn at this job? Right? Because we'll get the next opportunity once we've completed what it is that we're at that job to learn. And if it's to set a better boundary, great. You set a better boundary. If it's to, finally clean up your desk, or if it's to, hit a goal that you've wanted to do, or whatever it may be. If we start to reframe and say, okay, just even, I hate my job. What do I have to learn about? What do I still have to learn at this job? Or what do I still have to gain from this job? Oh, actually, I don't need this job anymore. there's something else that I'd actually way rather do. And I just got an offer, but I was negating change. So instead of being stuck in this story of hating my job or hating my work, I can just simply reframe that and say, oh, I have nothing else to learn here. Like, I'm ready to move on. Oh, okay. So when do I want to move on? Well, I'm going to start looking for another job, and I'm going to give myself the next 3 months or the next 3 weeks to find a new job. Okay, cool. Oh, finding a new job is really, really hard to do. Okay, that's another statement. Finding another job can be exciting and also challenging. Okay, cool. So now I'm framing this as exciting and still owning the fact that it can be challenging potentially, right? And so just reframing these opportunities in our minds gives us a lot more context and I think inspiration to go about our lives.
Yeah, and I think it also opens us up to seeing opportunities a little bit more attentively. It seems like the reframe is the strategy for that quote that you shared earlier. Everything in my life is happening for me, not to me. I think the real key here is making it a practice to catch when that thinking might not be serving us and using that as an opportunity. It really is, to me, the ability to catch it when it's happened. And then, of course, using this strategy as a way of creating for ourselves a lens through which we are seeing more opportunities. Okay, my man, I think I'm ready for it. I have something I want to transition into. And I also want to acknowledge that when I was getting set for this thing, I kind of felt like we were going to start here. And I'm glad that I trusted in the flow and didn't try to force things, because I wouldn't have had the opportunity. We wouldn't have had the opportunity to hear all of that backstory that I think is going to make everything that comes after this even more powerful to hear from you. Let's talk about entrepreneurship.
I'm so happy we didn't start here.
yeah, and I think it's powerful. Go ahead.
It is powerful, and it gives the foundation for what we're going to speak to in entrepreneurship. And it's really interesting. I was listening to a podcast with Aubrey Marcus and someone, and he's like, if I get asked the question one more time, why did I start on it? He's like, I just don't give a fuck anymore, or something like this. He's like, I didn't just start on it. Like, that's not what actually fully lights me the fuck up. And he's like, I want to talk about, aspects of the journey, or like the psychedelic use that he's done, or like the impact in humanity. And so I just really, just very grateful for you, for taking the time to ask those questions and go through that. One quick note, you said the catching, of it in that last piece. Staying connected to our breath as often as possible helps me personally stay in a state where I can catch those things. And when I falter, because I do all the time, it's always when I'm not being present and I'm not staying connected to the rhythm of my breath. And if I am staying connected to the rhythm of my breath, I will catch a majority of those patterns, all kinds of patterns, almost all of the time. And people, homies, friends, sisters, brothers listening, I have companies that, yes, sell products, and I've done a lot of research as well. And the best thing that you can do, that I believe, is just stay connected to your breath, which doesn't cost you shit. It is so free. It is so abundant. And so before we talk about anything business related, the only thing that I'm going to sell you on is to educate yourself and find your own unique ways to stay connected to your breath, because it costs you nothing. And if you do that, I think it'll radically transform your fucking lives. So just that as a precursor.
Every so often there's a piece in the conversation that I just feel like is the highlight, the monologue that needs to be seen. And I think that might have been
nice.
We might have some more coming.
Yeah.
No, I actually,
what do you want to, yeah, go on.
I have to dive deeper into that, because that really landed for me. Being connected to the breath and observing when negative thought patterns or thoughts that don't serve us come up. Those are two things that, of course, I value. But I don't know if I've ever drawn a connection between the two. I've never heard it being being connected to your breath will support you in being more aware of thinking that isn't in alignment. So just to be really clear, what does that practice look like, being connected to the breath? Is it just a awareness of your breath throughout the day? Is it that simple?
I think that we as humans, the identity that is I, we like to think that things are like actually really like complicated, myself included. I think that sometimes I come at life, I'm like, oh, it's so complicated. It's really not. It's really quite simple. And a factor of this is, any profound ascended master, teacher, whatever you want to say, all of their teachings are really simple. They're really not that hard. Again, this comes back to simple, not easy. Is it easy to love your neighbor as you love yourself? Is it easy to learn how to love yourself? No, not actually. It can be kind of challenging, but it's simple to be principles to start to love yourself and love others around you. For me, I'm just taking that simple approach. It is just coming back into a remembrance of breath. That's it. So it's like in this podcast, I just intentionally, when I'm not speaking, and even when I am, to just take a nice breath in through the nose. It keeps me staying super present. What I noticed, even while I was saying that, is I have one of the largest presentations of my life to date after this call. Okay. And so my practice, and there's like still some fine tunings on the presentation that need to be done, and these different pieces that need to be tied together, and like presenting to a billionaire for a new project that's huge. And my ability to stay present with just you on this conversation, because I have enough time. Everything's going to be perfect. I know this. It is. And if I'm not breathing, my mind will start to cut off its oxygen supply. I'm losing connection to my body. I'm getting into the head. I'm starting to think. I'm, getting into worry. What if? All these pieces. But if I can just continue to breathe and circulate this energy through, I stay present and I stay connected. And it's not like I'm not doing breath work. I'm just doing conscious breathing. I'm not doing conscious connected breathing or anyone's protocol or someone who's branded an idea. Not that that's right, wrong, good or bad, but just to remember to breathe. That's it. And it's something that we're unconsciously doing all the time. Thank God. Same with our heart, but we don't have control over whether our heart beats or doesn't beat. We can use other factors to maybe slow or speed that heart rate up, but we can't just directly, physically control it physiologically, but we can with our breath. And so to just breathe and remember that you're breathing. And while you're going about your typing, just breathing. And while you're going about your conversations, breathing. So for me, it's just a remembrance of breath. And that remembrance inspires aligned or conscious or intentional action into what we're doing, which brings us into the present moment, which in the present moment, we are I am. We know everything is. We know everything's happening for us. We don't need to worry or fear. We know no matter if I crush this presentation and I lock this deal in, or I fall flat on my face, as long as I'm coming at it from present moment, that is an opportunity for me to learn from both. Doesn't matter which. I'm unattached to either outcome. Both are going to be profound celebrations and lessons for me, as long as I remain present so that I can deliver my unique expression of I am. And my ability to do that is to stay connected to the breath just through breath remembrance.
Is being present the reason why you are so detached?
Yeah. Well, the presence and also the mantra that life is happening for me, not to me, right? I'm a ever evolving human being that has so much to learn in the world of business that it would be ignorant for me to just think that I can go into, over positivity and be like, this is going to go great no matter what. And I hold that perspective very strong. I don't let go of that. And also, because I'm an ever expanding human being in this world, it might not go as I perceive to be so positively well. And I could be faced with challenges. And this state of realizing that that's also happening for me, that state of presence that allows me to hold the polarity or the duality of, super positive or super perceived negative. Both of those are perceptions that I, as Jeremy, put on and project onto this or that, from a very finite, minuscule snapshot of time and space. And so the presence just allows me to hold the duality of the outcome while still focusing my divinity, my intention into that in which I prefer most.
I think that last piece for you really tied it together for me. There's still an intended outcome.
Oh yeah. Fuck yes. There's 100% an intended outcome. And also, I don't know what that outcome, I have an idea and I can visualize it. You guys can obviously see a bunch of writing here, and I was going through my process last night preparing for this session, right? For today, of course, but also for later. And it was like this workout. It was like a 5-minute workout. And then it was like a breath work meditation. And then there was body connection. And then there was like a hype dance, bass music. We were dancing. And then there's a line that holds those breath work, body connection, and hype dance together. And it's visualization. I guess it's more over here. Visualization, that is the precursor for that. But then after that was a shadow meditation. So I was visualizing exactly how I wanted it to go, how I wanted to see it. I felt it, I experienced it, etc. But I ended with, okay, what happens if this all goes to shit? What do I, as Jeremy, still need to learn from this experience? Because one of the things, and I haven't shared this much, and I'm interesting why I haven't, I guess it wasn't time until now, is if I don't believe that time is chronological. I believe we're living in a lot more fluid perspective of time and space. And so that means that there's already a version of me that's experienced this outcome on both sides. One that's failed, quote unquote failed, and one that's succeeded. Again, these are connotations that I'm adding to this. So I can go into the future, technically, but time isn't linear. So it's not actually the future, but it could be. Anyways, we won't get into that right now. But, and I can learn from both of those experiences. So I said, okay, if I completely shit the bed, if I completely failed here, what was it that I learned from that experience? And so I sit in a shadow meditation of being in this room, of flunking, of failing, of misrepresenting, of all these pieces. And then I go, now what have I learned from that experience? What are the key takeaways, the hindsight of this quote unquote failure that I can learn? So then I had a great meditation over here in the corner of my couch in pure darkness and pure silence, going into the shadow of the most preferred outcome. And I learned from what I perceive, and we'll find out later today, what I learned, what I perceived were the key moments where I really, quote unquote, failed. And I just meditated on those moments, pulled that perception and that wisdom back into the present moment, went to my presentation, made some changes, sent some notes to my team, okay? And then said, all right, tomorrow's going to be exactly what it needs to be, and we're here to fucking show up and do our best. So I spent a lot of time visualizing, based on this, 60% more time on the visualization. And yet I still finished with a meditation that said, okay, this is the outcome that I see. How can I sit with the opposite of that outcome? What do I have to learn from that? And how do I apply that to the present moment situation? So ultimately, I think it's the greatest hack for having the greatest possible outcome, but it comes with facing the failure and the shadow. And then also letting go of expectation that it needs to look how I, as Jeremy, think it should look, when I can only, make it be. Anyways, little detour.
Oh, perfect. The piece that stood out to me about that, and just to summarize to make sure that I'm getting it correctly, are you learning from the failure, so to speak, before it comes?
Yes.
I've never heard anyone do that before.
It's worked really well.
Really?
Yeah. Well, if you can put yourself in a situation of failure before it happens and quote unquote extract as much of that value as you can from the future failure and bring that into the present moment, now you should be able to speak to those issue points much more effectively. And what I did last night is there's a whole bunch of different energies in this presentation. There's going to be like 8 or 9 people. Every single one of those people has a different potential intended outcome, even though they could remain detached. And so what I sat with is, what does each person here, from what I perceive, all right, again, this is just my perception, what do they want? What are they looking to get out of this? You know, what does this individual want? What does that individual want? What does this individual want? What is that? What do I want? Right? So being able to hold that entire field of energy and understand, as Jeremy, where I'm leading this, where I'm presenting this, where I'm sharing this, and this ties perfectly into entrepreneurship. So we're just going into like super like subtleties of like the foundation of entrepreneurship. So all of this, just for people listening, is fully converted into business success, because I've done the same practice before any business decision, moment, raise, launch, anything, all of it, all the time. And just be able to hold that space and realize, what are these key things? Like, it would be unfortunate, but also beautiful if I went into this presentation and, for an example, I wasn't myself and I was catering to someone else's needs, or I didn't know the numbers correctly. I didn't know exactly how much it was going to cost us to start this project, and I didn't know how profitable it's supposed to be and what the derivatives of it would be. Really unfortunate if I didn't know that. But I know that there's going to be an individual in this call that's the decision maker that's going to be very specific on some of these key points that I hadn't studied as well as I could have. Right. So when I'm in this meditation, I'm going, oh man, like, what could go wrong? Oh, someone could ask me this question and I could not know it because it's not represented on the presentation. And that's going to, lead to uncertainty in my ability to lead this project. Okay, cool. So like, I'm not going to make that mistake. Great. Put that note in my notebook, keep going in the meditation. And then after the meditation's done, I'm like, oh, great. Awesome. So I got to do this. I got to make sure this has happened. This caused me to fail in that alternate timeline. Okay, cool. And then I just keep moving on.
The way this is making sense to me is, in your meditation, you're allowing yourself to receive from all your future selves. And you seem to, more than I have at least, have this ability, or made this a practice, to be more clear on which of your future selves you are receiving from.
Yeah. And also the acceptance of my shadow aspect of my future self, that I'm not pushing or neglecting in this box of like, I think that if we're over compromised into positive outcome, that we're setting ourselves up for a major course correction, a pendulum swing. It's not here or here. Like if we were to just boost off in a rocket ship and go up to space, a moment in time is a moment in time, an energetic representation of a specific time in space. But like, time doesn't even necessarily fully exist. So we as our humans are deciding if a moment is good or not good, positive or negative. We have that decision to make that. And so I'm just more connected to the shadow aspect of my future self that also still makes mistakes and has a ton to fucking learn. And how can I learn from that version of myself to continually refine how I show up best? I think that is that is something that I hold true and has helped me a significant amount in my life.
Do you think we could come to a point where whichever outcome comes, we're able to embrace both as openly?
Yeah. Yes. I would say I'm still like 60-40, you know, the 60% at least. It might be 65, 35. But close to 60-40 of like, I still really, want this outcome. And that other 40%, I'm like, all right, cool. Course correction, change in plans. That's all good. Like everything is happening for us, not to us. Everything is happening for us, not to us. It's just me getting out of the mental way and remembering that in my heart and in my body and in all of me. And so, yeah, I do fully believe that we'll get there. And I truly believe that as we get there, the amount of dis-ease and sickness and things like this, obviously there's sickness from other things, but will be significantly reduced because pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice, right? Pain of a breakup, pain of death, pain of rejection, all of these things are totally real. Suffering, you can't get away from that pain. That pain will have to be processed in some way, shape, or form. Therapy, breath work, counseling, movement, cold, silence, whatever the fuck it is for you, right? Suffering is the holding on to something that is your choice to continue to stay in suffering. And so I believe that pain is natural and we should feel. Suffering is something that we don't necessarily need to feel, and that is up to an individual's choice. And so I just choose to process the pain and not hold or create suffering as much as possible, which I think significantly improves our immune functions and the way in which our body operates.
I'm seeing a connection that you're drawing between judgment and resistance, suffering and disease.
Yeah.
There's the question I thought we were going to start on. And I'm also glad that you made it clear that everything that we just spoke about in the last 10, 15 minutes I actually feel like is a perfect foundation to set for the conversation of entrepreneurship. To give you a little bit of context, the reason why I even want to talk about this is that I know that there is a whole ton of people listening to this show and is part of our community that are in the space of, I want to serve, I want to support humanity in the ascension process, I want to support the awakening of consciousness. And many of these people are at least intrigued by the idea of entrepreneurship. I think some of them have started. That's kind of where I'm seeing the demographic. There's some that are in that early stages, and then many that are yet to begin with something that they've felt is, a expression of their purpose here. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I had some really fun ideas to riff on as you were sharing that. And they might not be as popular or as motivating as some may expect, because I'm not someone that's going to just fire you up because I think it's cool. I try to be as direct and specific and honest as possible. And I do believe that there's a ton of people in communities that I've witnessed who like the identity of, going into entrepreneurship because they have a perspective of how it looks based on how some people portray it online. And that it gives this like, to be sovereign and to be free, I need to work for myself, or I need to, be an entrepreneur, or I need to be a business owner. And I don't actually fully, wholeheartedly agree with that. My first piece of advice to people who are on the path of entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship, in my definition, is someone that is willing to invest their time, their money, their resources, and go all in on whatever they're doing. If you're not that, you're a business owner, and you can be honest with yourself about what you're doing. Because there's a difference between being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, in my perspective. And again, these are titles and, potential identities, but speaking to that, and so if you're already along the path, before you go further, make sure it is exactly what you fucking want to be doing, or in the direction that you are consciously choosing. Because if it's because you saw someone else do it, and you think that would be cool, or you think that you can make an impact because you saw someone else do it, it may be true to you, but it also may not be true to you. So really make sure that it's what you want to do. Again, there's no right or wrong, because along your path of doing this, you're going to find out what works for you and what doesn't. So it's not like a right or a wrong. This is just very specific and direct for someone who's really wanting to hone or refine their journey currently, right now in time and space. But make sure it's what you really want to do. There's a ton of coaches. There's a ton of businesses. There's a ton of things starting. I love that. I love innovation. I love business. I want more people to do it. But I'm telling you, it's really fucking hard. It like with quantum principles, with understanding impact, with balancing the body, like it doesn't have to be hard, but the way that most of us make it can be rather challenging. And there's a lot of pieces and there's a lot of things. So if you're going to put all of that time and energy into it, make sure that you really want to be doing this before you go down and end up just working for someone else anyways. Secondly, there's no shame in working for other people. There is so many incredible business owners and entrepreneurs that are focused on creating fair exchange and work cultures that are different than things have been. So maybe you're just you've been playing in the wrong house this whole time, and there's something else that really does inspire you. And so I think that's really important to note. And we are moving to, more sovereign ways of working as independent contractors instead of employees. There's more ways to really still be sovereign and, your own business owner. It just looks a little bit different than some are willing to see it. For people who haven't started, who are wanting to start, similar advice: make sure it's something that you are so passionate about and that you build the skill sets around, that you're willing to not do it just for profit, that when you have limited resources, when you have, moments of time where you're questioning why you're doing it, that your why you're doing this is so fucking strong that nothing can blow you over. Start with that foundation. Start with that concrete foundation, because if you don't, you're going to get pushed and blown and drowned out quickly, right? And at least how I see it. Again, there's no right or wrong. This is a very specific, for whatever reason, I'm feeling called to a very specific message, because I did both on both sides, and I've just got slapped around. I've done a lot of learning, and I'm really grateful for all of that learning. If you choose to go and do that learning, you're going to have a really epic and transformational experience. If you're wanting to learn, and I don't have the ability as much to learn from others, I'm very experiential in my human design. I got to figure it out for myself. Like I had to get burned by fire to realize that fire burns you. I'm one of those guys. I'm like, what do you mean it's hot? It looks so pretty. It doesn't look that scary. And so, those are the biggest pieces. Is really just like doing it because you want to, and doing it because you're truly inspired to. I think that, every single person, not every single person, I won't exaggerate. Most people that I know that have gone through this experience, they want to open a retreat center, or they want to open a community space, or all. That's really great. I'm really stoked that there's more people wanting to create these spaces, and there's a ton of people creating these spaces, right? That's epic. Not every single person is going to open that space. A lot of people can open that space, but not every single person is. And so this comes back to ideas, business, all these sorts of things. They're not you have your unique expression on that idea, but the actual inception of that idea is not necessarily overly unique. I believe that there's templates of information and things to be built that are coming through the collective that people are tuning into and then building, right? How you could build it, yes, is unique to you, but there's other people who have a similar, different, but similar idea to you. And maybe you can collaborate with them. And instead of having 100%, you have 25%, but you have a team of 4 that all gets to, work on this together instead of, being my idea needs to be. And sometimes there will be times where it is your idea if you feel that call, but just if you know that it's your idea and you want people to support your idea instead of collaborate with people, just know why so strongly that your foundation will not blow over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's I know it's an important message that you're bringing through, because I feel like a lot of these visions and ideas are being incepted and are coming through for many that may not yet see other people playing in the same space, or not yet be connected to others that have similar ideas. So perhaps for some, I would say letting go of the sense that it needs to be them or them alone will open them up to seeing that there's room for collaboration, and ultimately the vision that they're holding is being shared and can be worked on together in collaboration. And that's something that's been coming in strong for me, how the next what we're stepping into has been, or is going to be, about so much more collaboration and less about needing to be the guy when people come together with a common vision. Yeah.
And that's okay. And everyone wants to, be a coach or open a space or start a this or start a that. And that's great. Like, I'm speaking to you as one of those people. Like I do get it. And, just to touch on something, and quickly come back, it's like when I went on those travels and learned the different modalities and things like that, I was still married at the time. And when I came back, I thought I was coming back to my wife, and I was coming back a completely changed person. She picked me up from the airport crying, told me she didn't love me anymore, and left me. I found out later that she cheated on me with one of my friends while I was gone in the last part of my trip, like a week before our 1-year anniversary, after that profound, healing experience. And life is happening for us, to us. And I remember I ended up like selling my house and, liquidated some assets. And this is when I really started to go head first into building all these things. I felt like I could do anything once I overcame that, abandonment, heartbreak, all these different things. And the first thing I wanted to do was open. This brings it all full circle. Okay. This is a really fucking epic piece of this. Okay. I was like, I sold my house. I had multiple 6 figures sitting in my bank account, liquid, at 23 years old, 24, 23, just sitting there. Okay. And I just had these experiences. I just been with community, and I was like, I am going to open, this conscious oasis space in the city, and people are going to come, and we're going to do breath work, and we're going to do microdosing, and like, it's going to be awesome. It was like this space, we're going to have juice and adaptogens, and like, it's going to be awesome. It's like this retreat space, but in the city, it's this oasis. And I was like, okay, first we need to work on building a community, like really, so that when we open a space that we don't have to like do a lot of marketing, like the community already exists. So that's when I started connecting community to the company, and we started doing all these events. Right. And I was looking at spaces, like there's pictures, maybe they're not anymore, but there's pictures of my socials where it's like, I was literally actively looking for spaces, like in spaces, looking for leases. And I ended up building a bunch of other stuff. I started to look at it. I was told to move from outside of the city into the downtown city to anchor in light and to start to build the Oasis, which is what we're in right now, because I started to hold events from my townhouse in downtown Vancouver. And I was getting really close to making a purchase or making a lease, and COVID happened, and all of this uncertainty around people coming into spaces and what was going to happen. I'm in Canada. I'm like, man, am I going to still live in Canada? Like, am I going to be piecing out of Canada? Like, what's going on? Can I get out of Canada? How do I get out of Canada? And yeah. And so that was years ago. Okay. Let's fast forward. And then in that period of time, I ended up starting a bunch of other projects and things that I could do, you know, no matter what, and learn different business, and realize that tons of people had this idea, and that I really wanted to just focus on building community and creating epic products like the Not Coffees and the things that really, you know, transform my life, and all these things that people could take every day, wasn't limited to a geographical location, like all this kind of stuff. Right. I was like, I could grow this amongst the country. We're looking at Australia now. We're looking at Europe now with our products, things like this. And long story short, Jason and I are working on a project. It's, you know, the future of what spas will look like. I don't know if you've heard any of that stuff, right? And long story short, I ended up...
The bed?
The bed's going to be there. Yeah, the quantum wellness spas. We're launching a franchise of quantum wellness spas that include the bed, as well as a bunch of other cool pieces of technology.
Canada?
We're working on it, bro. We're working on it. We're starting in LA. That's the presentation I have in just a little bit here. And so I'd always wanted to build this revolutionary healing space. Okay. It's been on my mind since my moments of awakening. It's just been so present for me. And it was going to be called the Conscious Oasis. When I started my adaptogen company, what did I call it? Oasis Adaptogens. It was to keep that thread of an oasis is the source of thriving life in the middle of challenging conditions. That's fucking life, everybody. It's like, it's not easy out there, but it is, and it can be. And when we remember that we are the oasis, we are the source of thriving life, it can give us the rejuvenation, the replenishment, the strength to walk through the desert to the next town or to the next oasis. We can go through the sandstorms. We can go through the heat. We can do all of that. As long as we remember at any given point, we can create that oasis where we are. We can go into the subtleties of how our logo is built like that and all these kinds of pieces. But I know I'm going a little bit long-winded here. Years later, I still wanted to. I've, you know, worked with other groups that are doing cool stuff. I'm walking through this building where we are going to likely be building this spa, and it has access to the largest rooftop in North America that they call the Oasis in downtown. The business plan literally says the Oasis in downtown. It has a cafe that is ready to be built, waiting for the right partner. It has a spa that's been 80% built out. That's the perfect size for what we want to do. And it has access and the capabilities to host some of the largest wellness events on a rooftop in an actual oasis with trees and flowers and pools and saunas and steam rooms and all of the fun things. And this is 5 years after I sold my house to go build this thing. In Vancouver, and now this is in LA and all these pieces. And it's literally the same words that I didn't create. This was created by someone else. And so I think that really ties together a lot of these different pieces of the letting go, the accepting, and also just realizing that there's so many people that are working on these things that we haven't seen. I have an opportunity to work with a very small percent of really genius inventors and engineers and people that are creating technology that are going to blow people's minds for the next number of years. And some of them, when we talk to them, they're like, no one else has figured this out, you know, because they're in their unique box of genius, which is creating all these cool technologies. And I'm like, yeah, like I know there's like one or two things that make your thing proprietary, but there is actually someone that I spoke to like 2 hours ago that's done something like almost the exact same. And it's incredible. So people are receiving these downloads and this information from a similar place. We don't own thoughts. It's just how those thoughts and inspiration are uniquely created and alchemized through that individual's expression. But there are other people that have similar things. So really refine what makes yours unique, and in that uniqueness, make sure that it's the foundation of that is value and impact, because that's what's going to ultimately get you through the challenging times and build the community that you want in your business as well.
Mm-hmm. There's one little piece I want to cap here. I'm asking this because I feel some are holding themselves back and thinking that they have nothing new or special to bring to the table. That's already being done. There's already people doing this that are doing it better than I can. Why me? Why should I?
Yeah. If you can remove that's a great question. There's two sides to this coin. There's the, I don't have anything to offer, and I'm the only one that has this idea. Where do you meet in the middle? And there's not right or wrong to that either, but whoever's listening to this right now, you have a unique expression that only you could ever create in this moment of time, in existence, ever. You have a unique expression. You could create a more unique, customized iPhone. Okay. You could do it. You could create maybe a better version of our Not Coffee. You could maybe even create a different. Is that what you uniquely want to do? Because if you're forcing or thinking that you need to, you're likely going to create something that is subpar, because your ability to connect to the divine intelligence that will shine so clearly through you. We're talking about light and then the magnifying glass. The only way that it will shine so clearly through you is that if it all checks out and it's like, yep, you got it. This is the thing that you're supposed to go all in. And that might change over time. Like it might not stay the same. But you'll know and follow that. And if that is being a transformational life coach or opening a cafe, do it. Just know that you are uniquely inspired to do it, have that level, and believe that you are capable of doing it, because you are. We are all super capable. If someone says that they're not capable nowadays, it's like, man, I just fucking Google it, watch a YouTube video on it, listen to a podcast on it, use the tools that are available to you to educate yourself, get out of your way and do it for real. That's very direct. I have different, personas and tones, but it's very real. But everyone does have a unique expression that they're here to offer. It just might look different than what you think it is, based on what you think you're trying to look like, based on maybe what you're seeing on the internet or in the world. And so just make sure it's unique and inspired.
Yeah, I see that inspired piece. That's how it really lands for me. It's, you let me know if I miss here, but for me, it's landing as if you live in alignment with your passion, your inspiration, with what lights you the fuck up, that in itself will be your unique expression.
Yeah, man. And I'm going to use you as an example. And I don't know this, because you could agree or disagree. I've been on many podcasts, many interviews, interviewed by the Forbes teams and these teams and whatever. You ask the best questions that have ever been asked. So I would intuit that you actually really like podcasting and having great conversations with people. I believe that, even though there is tons of podcasts out in the world, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe. You're like, no, I want to create this podcast and I'm going to do it. And again, I don't know, maybe you're like, man, I actually really fucking hate podcasting, and I might be completely missing the mark here. But my intuition tells me differently. And my intuition tells me that because I witness your inspiration, your attention to detail, your intention of your listening, your reflecting, your questions, the value that you're extracting in a beautiful way from me to your audience in profound ways, is wow, you're still doing it in your unique Bryan expression, even though there's thousands of podcasts. And I believe that, again, whether it serves one person or 100,000 people or 1 million people, your intention is just to share message with just even one person. And that's just an example in live time with something that is super saturated, and how someone can break through in their unique way and add intrinsic value to it.
I hate podcasting.
Damn it.
Of course, I'm joking, because I get to have epic conversations like this one and get to learn from people like yourself. And I've always kind of felt like I hacked the system. I get to both do something I enjoy, learn in the experience, and simultaneously create something that ends up being impactful for others, and all whilst again doing something I love and enjoy. So yes, your reflection was very much on point and appreciated.
Why are you doing it even though there's 100,000 podcasts out there in the world?
Yeah. I guess there's a new piece to introduce here. It's twofold. Equally as important, and at different times in my life, one feels like I lean into one side of this more than others, and that feels right. One, it feels inspiring. I love to do it. I truly do enjoy these conversations. The growth that I get from it, I just feel intrinsically this joy and fulfillment, and it's serving that purpose. I guess those are two separate things. It's serving a purpose of growth, which is also important to me. The one thing I don't think we all at all said today, but it's my truth. I feel like I'm meant to. Like I literally feel like I'm meant to. If I'm not doing it, it feels like I'm just not listening. So I have to.
And that's that piece, because I witnessed this in live time. I'm like, the questions, your intentionality, your reflections, the way that you do it is perfect. It's great, and so it's like, the reason why I believe that you'll succeed, which you'll continue to do, no matter if there's the voice in your mind or other people's minds, it's like, I'm not good enough, or, there's a lot of podcasts, or why are people going to listen to it, or whatever that voice is saying, is like, I'm fucking meant to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, I know this, and I feel that as someone who's on the podcast. And so there's that tangible notice where the moments where it's like, we're like, yes, like I feel, or I know that I'm meant to do this. And then you start. And sometimes you have to start to understand what it is that you're meant to do. That's also okay, but you'll be guided. You'll know if you listen, you'll know, you'll hear, you'll be nudged. Someone will say something on the street and you'll be like, whoa, that just spoke to me. You'll hear a moment in a podcast and you're like, whoa, that's it. I got to go start a cafe and sell adaptogens. Like, whoa, I got to start my own podcast. And then you're going to launch it and no one's going to listen to it maybe. And that's okay. And you're going to be like, okay, how do I refine my questions, my reflections, my presence? How do I share it with people? And you'll go along that process. So thank you for sharing, brother. I witnessed you're meant to in my experience with you. And again, just to hone in on this, even though there's hundreds of thousands of podcasts and pieces of content, your unique expression of how you show up, the people you interview, the questions you ask is unique to you. Podcasting is not unique to you. Your expression of podcasting is unique to you. And we all do have that expression. And, you might not be Joe Rogan, but you might impact more people, or you might impact less, and it still doesn't matter, because you're going to impact who you're supposed to, as long as you're following what you're meant to do. And that's the same for everyone else. And that's okay too.
ever see.
I think you're going to impact more people than Joe Rogan. But.
Me
Yeah, we got years on those guys.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, man, I got a couple quick fire last few questions for you. Thank you again for sharing that. You can probably hear about it later, what that meant to me. Yeah, I'm gonna take you through what we're still calling the ascending round. We haven't done it for a while. We're gonna do it again. Who knows if it's gonna be that in the future? But today it's the ascending round. A couple quick fire questions for you.
All right.
Yeah. Ready for them?
I'm ready.
Yeah. What one book have you read that comes closest to being what you would call a must-read?
The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Yeah. Yeah, The Surrender Experiment.
Nice. What one you practice perspective or lesson that in integrating in the last 6 months has had the greatest impact on your life?
My ability to slow down and more intimately connect with those around me.
Nice.
Work in progress.
Yeah, integrating. So it's a process.
Yeah.
What does it mean to ascend?
To expand in all directions into the highest, best, and most potent version and unique version of yourself.
How do we ascend?
By being ourselves.
Ooh. I got one more for you, but before I ask it, my man, share with us where we can find out more about you and what you got going on. If there's any invitations that you want to present, please do.
Yeah. Right now, the best hub for me is Instagram. That's like where because there's so many moving parts, that's like the central piece. And then I'm going to start shooting things off. So Jeremy at Jeremy J. Hoffmann on Instagram. You can find me on any social under that name. And I encourage you to go through some of the links. There's not-for-profits. There's cool technology. My highest passion is obviously helping people with the adaptogens and functional mushrooms because it was so powerful in my life. We have some really awesome formulations. So check that out if that's for you. And engage, share. We're really on a mission again to help the world remember harmony. And that goes throughout everything that we're doing, not just Oasis, but really for me as a human being. So if you feel called to share, I'd love to interact with you guys. And I was putting out a lot of content and then I slowed down again. There's just influxes of, projects and things like that, but I'd love to connect with anyone listening and enjoy learning from you guys as well.
Nice. Ready for the last question of the day, my man?
I am.
Yeah. You had that experience where you were telepathically communicating with that woman?
Yeah.
Well, right now you just realized the ability to telepathically communicate to all of humanity. What do you say?
Life is happening for you, not to you. Life can be simple, but that doesn't make it easy.
Too profound. Two of the many profound messages that you shared with us today. And I want to say I thank you. I appreciate you for all the amazing things that you're doing in the world, for this absolutely epic conversation, the amazing words you said to me that kind of reignited a bit of a fire in me. So thank you for being you, my man. And supporting this world and coming back into connection and harmony.
Yeah, thank you, man, for your questions, your presence, your reflections, your mission, your passion, and your igniting of other humans through the work that you do.
Ascenders, that is going to be it for my conversation with Jeremy Hoffmann. I trust that it was able to support you in remembering harmony. And perhaps for those of you that are on the path of entrepreneurship, or have at all heard the calling to explore it, I hope that you're open to receive that transmission regarding embodying your own unique expression and the impact that this can have when you step into it. You have something unique to bring this collective, and whether or not you're feeling called to express this as an entrepreneur, know that it's in doing what lights you up and following the inspiration that you will express this uniqueness, create a life that lights you up, and will have the greatest impact you can have. And if you're looking to create a life that lights you up alongside and with the support of fellow ascenders, well, ask the members of the Academy and they'll tell you that this is exactly what we've been doing in the Ascend Academy. At the beginning of this year, we together set the intention to make 2023 the best year of our lives, and 3 months in, and I gotta say, we've been feeling in alignment with this. And we'd love to have you there, amplifying this energy, amplifying this intention collectively. And if you're interested in exploring what this might be like, you can head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com to activate a free 30-day membership trial. Ascenders, that is going to be it for this episode of Awaken. Thank you for tuning in, for being here on this planet at this time during this moment in our collective's ascension. And until next time, keep ascending.